Hey everybody, this is Michael with Asymmetrical Preparedness. So, I gotta get this video out just because of something that happened earlier this afternoon. I want to call it Always Vigilant. So what happened was, I was in the Naval Hospital pharmacy getting meds for my wife and myself after having appointments. So, starting off the story, I come in to check kind of like, where our number is. Come around the corner and I'm looking at the screen and this dude's sitting there and he's like, "Hey, you look familiar." And I look at him like, he doesn't look familiar to me, so I'm like, I don't know. He's like, do you work out of the Y? Or do you go to the Y? And I said, no, I don't go to the Y. And he's like, oh, okay. Well, he's like, awkward silence, and then he's kind of like, wow, maybe you have a double out there. I'm like, I just kind of laughed, and I'm like, yeah. And then we're just standing there, I'm kind of reading the screen, and then that Donald Duck quack that some people can do? I can't make that weird noise. He just blurts that out. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, there are people out there with mental disabilities and stuff like that. Okay, no big deal. I'm like, a lot of them are really good people, great people. So anyway, I go back outside, check my kids. They're playing in this gravel and stuff like that around the corner. My 11-year-old watching my 3-year-old, and it's on base and stuff like that. So, come back in, and we come back in, and we are sitting in this row of chairs. So there's all these rows of chairs. So we're sitting on this side of this row of chairs, and there's this other row of chairs behind us. And there's this couple sitting there, and they have like an 18-month-old baby. It's a man and a woman, and he comes up and he's sitting right behind him. He's talking to him and stuff like that, and you could tell, he's just having a conversation. I'm like, oh, it's just one of those guys that, he just likes going around talking to people. They're really friendly. They don't really know much about, like, respecting your space and stuff like that. But, they're just warm-hearted, good people. And so, that's my initial impression. And but then I noticed, after a while, I wasn't really paying attention to what they were saying. And I could tell the body language on the female changed first. She kind of, like, turned kind of away in a defensive kind of like thing, protective of her child a little more. And then the guy kind of turns a little bit more like kind of in between his wife and the guy. And I'm like, huh, that's weird. And at this point, we'd been called up or something. I don't know. We'd moved. So row of chairs. And they're like down this side. So there's like all these rows of chairs. Then there's a big walkway, and there's some chairs on the window facing this direction. These chairs are all facing, like all the people are facing that direction. All the chairs are facing that direction. The ones in the windows are all facing that direction. And there's a walkway. So, and then up here, we're back here, and I'm over by the window seats, but I'm sitting on this table facing this direction. Because I like facing what I'm trying to analyze, what I'm looking at. Always vigilant. So, I hear this guy talking about how when he was 7 years old, he was surrounded by 7 heavily armed Japanese soldiers. And how he took them all out and killed one of them because he was so fast. And he really started changing. The attitude, it wasn't jovial. It was this dark, I don't know how to explain it. Just this darkness kind of came over him and his attitude and stuff like that. And I could tell the defensive nature of the people around him. All started defensive postures and stuff like that. And eventually, right after that, the people's number, that family's number, got called up. And as I walk away, he's like, "Oh, what's wrong?" And they're like, "Well, that's our number." Kind of, he was like, "Why are you walking away now?" And they're like, "Oh, well, that's our number. We got to go." Oh, and he's like, "Oh, okay." So they go over there, and then he walks across, I said that aisle, the chairs facing this direction. There's a woman with 4 young kids. No husband there with her. He's probably at work or whatever. He walks over to her, stands pretty close, and starts, kind of talking, making faces at her, making that Donald Duck quack or whatever that quack is again at some of her kids. And her kids are like, whoa, what's this dude? They're kind of looking away. This one girl's like impervious because she's over here on a video game, headphones, stuff like that, The other kids are trying to ignore him. She's sitting in the chair, so she's sitting in the chair facing this way, away from the window, which is right here. But she's turned her body that way because her kids are all sitting on this side of her. So she's facing her kids, looking straight at me. So we're making eye contact. And I could tell by her eye contact and body language she was not comfortable whatsoever. So I was kind of trying to give her the eye contact assurance that I was there, that I got her back. Even though I had my 3-year-old girl and my 11-year-old boy with me. My wife was down in the car just kind of relaxing while we were waiting. So then the guy was just, he wasn't getting it. They're trying to ignore him. And he's just talking, making weird noises and stuff like that. And like, you know, I'm getting really close to like getting up and saying something. And I'm kind of there, okay, so like talking about these rows of chairs here, aisleway, things. So back in here in a row of chairs is another dude and his wife. What I looked at him and felt, you know, like another fairly capable dude. Not old, fit, you know, fit young dude. So I'm kind of making eye contact with him, doing the dude thing. You know, hey, let's keep an eye on this situation kind of thing. And so then, let me see. She had to go up to the counter or something like that, and then he went up to another counter and just started like talking with them to a worker just like randomly. She came back over and sat down. He finished his conversation there, came back over to her again. She's getting really uncomfortable at this point, and I could just totally tell. And I was getting ready. I was like 2 or 3 seconds away from standing up and going over there and asking him just to please, just please go sit down. She's not so into your conversation. And then he looked over at me, met my eye contact with me, looked over at my little girl and says, "How old is she?" And I said, "That's none of your business, and you're really starting to bother people. Can you please just go sit down and leave the people alone?" And at that point, you should see the look in his face. He glared at me with hatred and anger and violence in his eyes. Complete and utter. Like this guy was about to snap. I'm staring him down. Eye to eye contact. We're just sitting there blazing a freaking, like in Harry Potter, you get the spells going, blasting each other. We're doing this, staring at each other. And he's just staring me down. He's spouting, he said a couple words in Russian, I believe it was. And I'm just like, dude, this guy's freaking weird. He's about, I'd say, 20, 30 feet from me. Okay, I'm in Naval Hospital. Not supposed to be armed, but I had a 380 on my ankle. Because I also had my Kershaw Emerson wave in my pocket, right back here in my back pocket. That's the one with the wave feature. So as you draw it opens the knife and you can draw and strike in the same motion. So I'm just kind of chilling and I'm like, okay, this may get ugly. I'm like, this guy's weird, this is getting really bad. And it was a real tense moment, everybody around, and he's just staring at me. I said, "Go sit down now and leave these people alone." I did the whole commanding escalation of violence with my voice. You can do that. It's part of the escalation of force for those that understand it. You can accomplish a lot with your voice. And normal people, I would say 90% of people with who I am, the way I look, and stuff like that, if I came at them like that, at least 90% of people would be like, "Oh shit, okay, I'll go sit down." This guy didn't. He's staring me down. And I'm thinking, oh boy, that switch just flipped on. I got adrenaline pumping through my veins. I mean, my hands are shaking. I'm like shaking. And, I'm not scared. I can deal with it. And we're just sitting there staring at each other. I'm like, dude, go sit down. You don't want any part of me. Trust me. And that's when this guy sitting next to him, I have very good hearing. He said, "Hey, that guy looks like a bad A. I wouldn't screw them. If I was you, I'd just go sit down." And then finally, he's like just staring me down, and he spouted off a couple more things in Russian, I think, and then slowly turned around and walked away. As he's walking away, staring me down. And I'm like, dude, this guy's whack, man. And this is right about the time, of course, unfortunately, right before that, my 3-year-old is trying to climb up my lap and stuff like that, and I'm trying to like do the things. I'm still sitting down this whole time. And before the guy went and sat down, before that happened, obviously there was this older gentleman sitting right here next to me, and he got up and went over to the window. I knew exactly what he was doing. He was calling for security. So he came back over, sat down. Anyway, forward, back to the guy. He went back and sat down in his chair, like probably 60 feet away from me. And he's just glaring at me. He's sitting in the chair, like seething, glaring at me. And the old gentleman was like, hey, I called security. I'm like, yeah, I know exactly what you're doing. I'm on board. I'm always vigilant. That's what I'm talking about in this video. Body language matters. How people are perceiving things. So anyway, I get called up to the window, finally. And so the windows, like the row of chairs are here, the aisle, window seats, window. The windows are right over here. And you're looking in. So I'm standing like this, though, with my left shoulder there, looking at that guy still. Out of the peripheral, blocking half my face with these little partitions between for privacy, in between the stalls to get your prescription meds. So I'm keeping an eye on him. And then my wife has lupus, so she has a lot of medications. Unfortunately, it's part of life for us. So they're going through all of it, and he gets called up. He gets called up to the window right in front of me, right next to me. And at that point, I sit my 3-year-old down, on the counter. I put my arm like this, blocking, like in between her, she's sitting here, and where he is over here. Told my 11-year-old to back, he was standing right here. I told him to back up out of the way, put my hand on my knife, got it ready so I could just come up and strike if I had to, immediately. He just got his medications, and then when he got his medication, turned around and walked back to his seat. Started putting his coat on, kept on looking back, just glaring at me, stuff like that. I'm like, is this guy going to wait outside for me, or what's going to go down? I'm still switched on. I'm like, I still got adrenaline pumping. So then got his coat on. Eventually, luckily, my meds took a lot longer than I thought I had, we're going to do. And I'm thinking, God, if this guy, what am I going to do? I'm like, normally, I'm not going to let this guy scare me. I'll just walk right past him. I got to go right past him to the elevators. I'm going to go right past him. You're not going to bully me. But I got my little kids with me. My kids are more important than my pride. So I'm thinking, okay, I can go out the back door and I can circle around and go to the parking garage that way. Because my kids are more important than being, a tough guy. I'm not trying to be a tough guy. I'm not trying to be a hero. But anyway, so he gets his coat on eventually and goes around the thing, and he goes that direction. I can't see out the door and up to the parking lot, hopefully. So, and as I'm, I get my meds and we start walking, and I'm as I'm going past these guys, the guy that called security, I shook his hand. I'm like, thank you for the backup. Then the woman was just like, oh, thank you so much. She's like, that guy was really freaking me out. Thank you for standing up and saying something. And then that one guy that said, I smiled at that one dude. I'm like, thanks, dude. He's like, oh, you hear what I said? And I said, yeah, thank you. And I walked past and looked up there. He wasn't there. Went to the elevator, went down, home, everything good to go. Don't know why this guy in that mental capacity was allowed on base. I have no idea his story. He was in his probably mid to late 20s. I don't think he was active duty ever. I think he was probably dependent. But he wasn't supervised. He wasn't escorted. Nothing. So I don't know what his situation was. But the point is a lot of situations where, like in cities and stuff, people will beat up in the middle of the street in broad daylight with 50 people standing around doing nothing because everybody thinks somebody else is going to do something. And, nobody else is doing something because, so I don't want to be the odd one out and not do anything. Here we are in a military base. Mostly older, retired gentlemen and wives and stuff like that. But, there were some guys that were, not too old. One capable guy. Nobody frickin' stood up. I had to stand up because I'll tell you what, I will always be the person that stands up. I will not let stuff go down without doing that. It's part of my sheepdog mentality. So, you guys, I just want to encourage you guys to be that person. Don't sit and watch something go down. Be that person. Stand up for what's right. Stand up for what's good. Be strong. I love you guys so much. I hope you guys like the videos. Please subscribe. Hit the like button and comment below. Let me know what you think. I tried to, obviously I didn't escalate the situation any more than I needed to. But, stand up for what's right, people. I love you guys, and blessings to you and yours.